But let me just say that we are determined and resolved to defend the nation systematically and deliberately against all forms of corruption. And the reason is because if there's any one issue that has continuously ensured that our country will not make the kind of progress that it should make, is corruption. Because corruption is not just stealing money, and that's a major part of it, but also leads to very bad decisions. Bad policy decisions are made on account of corruption. So somebody decides to build a huge, massive white elephant project rather than spend money on the things that are important drivers of the economy. So bad decisions are made, bad policies are made, all on account of corruption. So corruption is a major issue and a major issue for our economy, and we have no choice but to deal with it. In driving industrialization and focusing on medium and small-scale enterprises, our focus has largely been on creating an enabling environment for doing business in Nigeria. Now that is crucial. We need private capital to give our economy the push it needs. This is the abiding philosophy of our economic recovery and growth plan. There's no way that government funding or government finances by itself or government revenues by itself can ever do what we need to do with our economy. So it's very clear that we must ensure that we encourage private capital. So we need domestic. So we need a lot of domestic investments. Some of the investments that we have already. I mean, for instance, we have a major refinery, private sector refinery coming up with 650,000 barrels of oil a day. Now that refinery is the largest single line refinery in the whole world. It's a private sector. It's a private sector driven refinery. And the same company is doing a major fertilizer plant and also a subsea pipeline. All of the investments that one private sector company is doing is close to $12 billion. The kind of money that the private sector can get. Government struggles to get that kind of money. So we definitely need to get the private sector involved in investing in Nigeria. So we're trying to attract these huge investments wherever we can find them, huge investments in petrochemicals, in the oil sector. The oil sector, fortunately, things are looking up a bit more because we've been able to resolve the problems around the joint venture cash calls. So many of the oil majors are investing a bit more now. There are more rigs that are working than ever before, at least than in the past 18 months or so. So it's clear that we're gradually able to attract some foreign investments and some investments into the local into the local economy. Now, another plank of that policy, that's the economic recovery and growth plan, is what the president described as, in his budget speech, as growing what we eat and using what we make. In other words, ensuring that in our habits, we eat Nigerian food, we produce the food locally, we make Nigerian things, we buy what we make. In other words, made in Nigeria is it. And I think that one of the very critical things about that whole thing is that it enables us to create jobs locally. Of course, the moment you are importing things, we're creating jobs for other people. But if we make them locally, we create jobs locally. And that's, as I said, a major plank of our economic recovery and growth plan, being able to making our things locally. For instance, the president has directed that the army and several of our forces must patronize local boot makers, those who make boots locally, those who make equipment locally, and we must patronize them. And so we're going to find, a lot of not so long ago, we were in Aba we were there for an MSME clinic. And the sheer number of Nigerians that are producing very, very good boots, military boots and military wear, including fatigues and all of that. we saw about 4 or 5 major producers of these kinds of items. And so, of course, our new policy on Made in Nigeria and Buy Nigeria, they would definitely be able to do much more, and of course will create more jobs. In terms of industrial infrastructure, we're focusing on improving existing special economic zones and establishing new ones. We have set aside 50 billion in the 2017 budget for the existing zones. Some of these existing zones are the Lekki Free Trade Zone, the Ogun Guangdong Free Trade Zone, Igbesa, the Calabar Free Trade Zone, and the Kano Free Trade Zone. We're also setting up a few model zone sites, Ibom City and Deep Sea Port, and the Enyimba City in Aba, Abia State. China Exim and Afro-Exim have announced an initial financing commitment of $1 billion. That will be available for our pilots and for other special economic zones. The plan is to accelerate the implementation of our national industrial revolution plan through these special economic zones. The zones will focus on priority sectors to generate jobs, promote exports, and boost growth. And of course, upgrade skills. Our objective is to create at least 1 million jobs by 2020 just through our economic zones. On February 21st, 2017, the Presidential Enabling Environment Council, PEBEC, launched a 60-day national action plan. The President had earlier constituted a Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council and asked me to chair that council. The whole idea was for us to concentrate our efforts on making it easier to do business in Nigeria. Of course, you might know that we came a poor 169 out of 190 countries in the ease of doing business scale that the World Bank does on a yearly basis. So clearly, there was something wrong with the way, there's a lot wrong with the way that that our environment is set up for doing business. And lots of businesses, local businesses, small businesses, large businesses, have one thing or the other to complain about. And so the President decided that we had better just focus all our efforts. And so we set up this PEBEC. It's both private and public sector. And we, on a weekly basis, track progress on all of the different areas that we think need to be improved for ease of doing business. The plan is implemented by different government departments and also Lagos and Kano state governments. Lagos and Kano, of course, are our biggest business centers, and so they are part of the ease of doing business setup. And so what we've tried to do is look at certain sectors, and the sectors are starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, paying taxes, trading across borders, getting credit, and then entry and exit of people through our ports. Those are the key areas that we're focused on. On April 24th, a report card was issued by PEBEC on our 60-day action plan. Our 60-day action plan was to look at these areas and see what improvements we could make in these areas. And our report card, we looked at all of the different areas and were able to achieve quite a bit. As a matter of fact, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria recently commended us because we gave ourselves 70% on our report card. Now, that's not because it's us, but we think that we really did make some progress. But I'll just point out some of the areas where progress has been made. In starting a business, the Corporate Affairs Commission has implemented reforms that have made the process of business registration faster through automation. Now you can search free online for company names now, and application forms have been consolidated. In the past we used to have 7 application forms, and now they've been reduced to 1. So we've reduced application forms, and you can actually upload for e-submission, but I'm going to come and talk about that in a moment.